Indie horror continues to fill a void that bigger companies don't want to, where I've seen an interesting trend in the rise of cozy horror games along with classic survival horror, first-person titles, pixel art games, and much more. So let's begin with Echograph, a classic isometric survival horror game where you play as Layla, the lone survivor of a night where her entire family was killed, and she returns years later to her crumbling family manor to uncover what happened and why she was spared. There is a photography element, so probably some Fatal Frame inspiration, where you're using it to damage or stun the spirits as you explore, find clues and items, solve environmental puzzles, and manage scarce resources like ammunition or healing items with an awesome PS1 era throwback art style as well. Metamorphosis is a brutal 2D side-scrolling horror game where you explore a dead world full of danger, in which you play as Arya, a nun branded as a sinner who seeks absolution, and your journey sends you down a long road toward the Golden Star and the last paradise left in this ruined land. There are not that many details available, but it looks cool, where the trailer does show survival horror style puzzle solving like entering numbers via a keypad, as well as an RPG-like status screen that shows your equipment, tools and accessories, as well as stats like health, faith, fire resistance, agility level, miracle levels and virtues, so it has my attention. This video is brought to you by Fearwoods, a co-op survival horror game where light and silence are your only defenses as you explore a cursed forest that hides danger and mystery. You and up to 2 others venture into thick, eerie woods where every sound could give away your position, having to move quietly while sharing a flashlight, using it to search for clues that help you uncover more about the backstory of a character named Evelyn, the ghost girl that you see in parts of this trailer. A relentless demon stalks your every move, where you do occasionally have to drop everything and remain still, hoping for it to pass, or in some cases, running for it might be the best solution. As you gather key items and clues, you are either saving Evelyn or condemning her forever, adding tension leading up to climactic escape sequences. The atmosphere is dark and terrifying, with all sorts of creepy things that go bump in the night, so work closely with your friends, with mutual trust becoming the cornerstone of your success. So if interested, wishlist the game on Steam. Quite a Ride is a first-person psychological horror game where you are trapped in a constantly shifting environment and must pedal your bicycle through fog-shrouded rural roads while trying to escape an endless nightmare. In this eerie world, the road is deserted and unnaturally thick fog keeps closing in, so you must keep riding to stay ahead of someone or something that is chasing after you. Your phone is a key tool because its battery drains over time and only recharges when you ride, where you're using it to capture anomaly signals and also to receive mysterious messages from an unknown sender that may help you make sense of your situation, or those messages might just deceive you and lead you down the wrong path. Explore strange, ever-changing landscapes that include abandoned towns, hidden laboratories, and unsettling terrain, with an equally diverse array of anomalies and other unsettling monsters, many of which have awesome, freaky designs, making you ask what the hell is going on, so if interested, wishlist the game on Steam. The Road of Dust and Sorrow is a story-driven, side-scrolling pixel art survival horror game set in a ruined world where humanity has fallen apart after a failed remedy made to end hunger warped people into feral creatures known as dusters. 10 years after the collapse, a mother named Catherine and her daughter Ava travel across decaying streets and shattered towns, clinging to hope for a safer place, while hostile enemies and an ominous preacher and his hollow-eyed flock watch their every move. Explore and poke into locked rooms, forgotten corridors and abandoned interiors, searching for precious resources, where every door can lead to either a little bit of salvation or sudden peril. Combat mixes both melee weapons and guns, with the essentially zombie virus not just being limited to humans but animals as well, all with an awesome pixel art look. The meta horror game can be very interestingly done, with Lily's World XD being one such example, a psychological horror game where you explore the laptop of a young girl from the early 2000s and uncover hidden truths by reading her old chat logs, blog, and browsing her photos and files. Lily is a dramatic, emotional teen with big dreams, but also has a secret you must uncover, so it starts off as a typical detective puzzle game, but then things get weird when you begin to notice messages that appear to be addressed directly to you. This lets you relive the early internet of the 2000s with the UI and presentation extending to the desktop interface, sparkly GIFs, old school chat logs, email chains, and archived folders, all of which paint a picture of Lily's online world while you solve the mystery, poke around her social media, diary entries, saved pictures, and even the system files, looking to cross some personal lines which can make you uncomfortable, with the overall game looking to be deeply unsettling. Becrowned is another classic-looking survival horror game, a surreal title set in a merciless world where fears take shape and danger lurks around every corner, forcing you to explore ruins of an ancient kingdom while fighting monsters and trying to stay alive. The story centers on Richard Torrance, a rational, cold-blooded man who has never found true happiness and now finds himself trapped in a bleak world woven from the nightmares of the distant past, where sinners, heretics, and even gods seem to exist. Exploration involves searching abandoned locations filled with secrets, discovering hidden passages and optional puzzles, and managing resources wisely so that you can survive encounters with grotesque enemies and challenging bosses in environments that echo classic survival horror design. Puzzles appear among the decaying surroundings, demanding careful thought, and every choice you make can affect the fate of others imprisoned in the world, with multiple possible endings ranging from hopeful to true nightmare based on how you act. The retro-style visuals are mixed with modern technology to create atmospheric locales that convey both horror and strange beauty, and the non-linear storyline responds to your decisions as you seek to uncover the mysteries of Richard's past while facing brutal threats, where you can either become the savior of the world or its destroyer, and will be for fans of the genre. Another classic-looking survival horror game is Ground Zero, set in a post-apocalyptic version of South Korea, where a massive meteor impact wiped out much of the country and left the land in ruins. 2 months later, an elite operative and a partner are sent to investigate, but what awaits them in the ruins is more terrifying than they could ever imagine. You land in the city of Busan, now having to explore its foggy ruins, temples, and urban centers that have been overtaken by terrifying monsters, with the meteor fallout mutating whatever living creatures it comes in contact with, resulting in danger around every corner as you search for answers. Use a variety of combat options that include firearms as well as melee attacks, including martial arts, where roundhouse kicking a zombie seems satisfying, with the game rewarding cleaner kills with genome points that can be spent on powerful gear upgrades which improve your chances in harder fights. Exploration is mixed with puzzles and atmospheric tension, using fixed camera angles to great effect, with gigantic, horrifying bosses as well. It is very classic, down to having the option for tank controls, along with unlockable outfits, hidden endings, new game modes, and more. Catechesis comes to us from the developer of The Count Lucanor and First Job survival horror Yuppie Psycho, and carries on their brand of pixel art horror, being an RPG adventure game where you play as Daniel, a young altar boy who becomes possessed by a demon and must balance virtuous actions with the dark force inside him as he navigates a city filled with danger and mystery. In the daytime, you attend school, work, and explore the city while trying to stay true to your faith, and at night you must confront demonic foes that emerge in abandoned streets, alleys, and the corners of this bleak urban setting. Combat uses twin-stick aiming with both ranged and melee weapons, and roll evasion lets you dodge attacks as you battle hostile creatures that prey in the darkness, requiring careful aim and timing to survive each encounter. Stealth, sound, and light detection also plays a role, so moving quietly and using a flashlight or candles can reveal hidden paths and valuable resources. As you explore, you meet unique characters and encounter story moments brought to life with the anime-style cutscenes, but in pixel art, looking to be more combat-heavy than their previous entry, which is interesting, where the pedigree alone makes this of interest. There are games in classic genres that have a very heavy horror inspiration, which I always don't quite know where to place, with Silver Pines being a survival horror Metroidvania that goes heavy on the horror, so here it is. Set in a small town in America, you play as private investigator Red Walker, sent to track down a vanished musician named Eddie Velvet. Explore the eerie streets, locked buildings, and hidden back roads while fighting or avoiding nightmarish terrors, scavenging for scarce resources like ammo and medicine to stay alive. Uncover strange clues and solve puzzles blocking your way forward, with more areas becoming accessible to you as you find better tools, weapons, and upgrades, letting you dive deeper into the mystery, looking like an interesting blend of ideas, with at least one of the developers having worked on Yoku's Island Express, which is very different in terms of vibes, showcasing their range when it comes to game development. HELLMART is a first-person horror simulation game where you work as an employee at a 24-hour convenience store in a quiet, snowy corner of the far north, and soon find that everyday routine turns into a nightmare. During the day, you serve regular customers, restock shelves, keep the register running, meet daily sales goals, and maintain the store and surrounding area so business stays smooth. When evening comes and night falls, evil awakens and you must watch the generator, board up doors, check security cameras, buy supplies, and upgrade the store so that you and anyone inside have a chance to survive the horrors waiting after dark. At night, strange clients appear who may seem normal but can trick, deceive, or harm you, so you decide who to let into the store and who to leave out in the cold while hiding, escaping, or defending yourself against threats that come from beyond the aisles. It looks to be mixing Supermarket Simulator with Five Nights at Freddy's and No, I'm Not a Human, looking absolutely terrifying. Although, side note, if you do come across a convenience store named HELLMART, perhaps just don't work there. A game that has exploded up the charts is Fractured Blooms, one taking some lessons from Dredge in the appeal of the cozy horror game, being a cozy life sim but with a repeating time loop. You play as Angie, a teenage girl who must restore a neglected house by growing crops, cooking meals, learning recipes, and caring for its inhabitants. Every day, you plant, water, and harvest a variety of crops to grow your garden while using ingredients to prepare home-cooked dishes that help sustain you and shape the rhythm of your routine. Daily activities also include tidying and fixing the house, decorating spaces with flowers, and taking care of home life so that the everyday routine gives you comfort and a sense of purpose amid the repetition. Every day includes new tasks and choices that require careful use of your food and stamina as you plan ahead, balance resources, and discover little changes that begin to appear as the loops continue, revealing surprises and shifts in the world around you. Most ominously, the game's description talks about plates of food, plates of tomatoes, plates of pain, plates of angels, and plates of her legs, definitely signaling that something will go very wrong, with the contrast in vibes giving it quite the appeal. Phase Zero is another classic-looking survival horror game, this time set in 1994 in a post-industrial harbour town called Flint Peak, where a strange illness has turned most of the residents into grotesque mutated creatures, and to make things worse, the area is now isolated by a relentless snowstorm. You follow two survivors, Mary, a reporter new to Flint Peak, and Guy, an injured engineer, as they scavenge what they can and try to endure the long night while horrific monsters roam the streets. The environment uses pre-rendered backgrounds and fixed camera angles that aim to evoke the feel of classic 90s survival horror titles, with a focus on tension, eerie atmospheric sound, and cinematically framed shots, which enhances the horror. You encounter mutated enemies that crawl through alleys and fill the town with disturbing sights, and must solve puzzles and decide whether to fight or flee in order to escape before dawn. Developer Frogwares has had their share of ups and downs, making games which are a bit janky but had their charm, and most recently had a dispute with publisher Nakon with The Sinking City, which has since been settled, and they are working on The Sinking City 2, a third-person survival horror game set in a Lovecraftian version of 1920s United States, where you explore the flooded city of Arkham and fight against incomprehensible monsters from the dark mythos beyond human understanding. The city is now a sprawling semi-open world of water-soaked streets, decaying mansions, and ruined districts that shift as rising water change the landscape and reveal new threats and secrets to uncover. Combat and exploration take a central role, with period-inspired weapons and limited resources, forcing careful choice about what to bring and how to face eldritch foes that vary in behavior and require strategy beyond raw firepower. Interestingly, there are optional puzzles as well, so you can take the time to figure it out and dive into them, or just ignore them completely and just do the survival horror game stuff. It is also running on Unreal Engine 5, delivering next generation visuals, and does look amazing, and does look to be a worthy sequel. This next title has gone viral on social media, but updates are a little bit scarce and I'm not sure if it will make it to launch, coming to us from a solo developer, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for now, in which Scary Cargo is a co-op horror game for 1 to 4 players where you must deliver mysterious cargo through cursed monster-infested zones full of danger and uncertainty. The mission begins simply: carry the cargo and stay alive to complete the delivery, but the world around you twists into something far more terrifying as hostile creatures stalk every path and open street. If a teammate dies, they may not stay dead, looking and sounding the same, while remembering your plans, routes, and even you, turning trust into a constant risk that can unravel any strategy that you make with your team. Some monsters behave in unusual ways, including ones that only attack if you make eye contact, and others that appear from places you're not watching, forcing constant vigilance and careful movement through every area. It follows in the footsteps of games like Repo, Lethal Company, and Content Warning, of course having proximity voice chat support, looking very impressive as well, so let's hope they manage to deliver on the promise. Liminal Point is a psychological survival horror game where you take on the role of Lyra, a once rising rock star who returns to a fog-covered desolate island named Ashen Point after receiving a cryptic voicemail about her missing bandmate Mira. The island is shrouded in mystery, and as Lyra explores the abandoned streets, ruined buildings, and eerie locations, she must uncover the truth behind Mira's disappearance while confronting grotesque horrors that stalk the deserted town. The game pays tribute to classic survival horror with a modern, spine-chilling approach that blurs the line between reality and nightmares, where you manage limited resources and face intense combat encounters. It's been a joy to see this developer's progress, even within the calendar year of 2025, posting and sharing about their game while continuing to tweak and improve it, where I believe they have crossed 100,000 Steam wishlists, which is a lot and is shaping up to be a big release. This next title is not so indie since Reanimal comes to us from Tarsier Studios, which I would consider to be AA due to their team size and is best known for Little Nightmares 1 and 2. Where handing off that IP didn't work so well, with the main team, I suppose, making another co-op horror side-scroller, probably with the financial terms being more in their favour. In this game, a brother and sister are trying to rescue their missing friends and escape a nightmarish island which has twisted into a terrifying place filled with danger and secrets. As is their expertise, this is an unsettling tale that focuses on tension and thick atmosphere as you explore eerie locations both on land and by boat, while working together to survive and uncover what haunts the island. You must use your wits to navigate through fragmented story paths and mysterious environments that each hold parts of a larger, darker narrative, with every new location offering its own challenges and horrors. Again, the grotesque monster designs is top-notch and is as squelchy and gross as you would like in a horror game, having a release date in February, so do keep an eye on this. One of the most interesting looking titles is Tenebrous Somnia, being a 2D pixel art survival horror adventure game that mixes pixel art with live action cutscenes created by an award-winning film crew from Argentina, so it should be pure cinema. This has you solving puzzles and fighting horrible creatures while uncovering a disturbing narrative, drawing upon old-school survival horror classics, placing heavy emphasis on the struggle as you navigate locations filled with hostile entities and environmental challenges. Puzzle solving and combat weave together so that uncovering clues, figuring out how to progress, and surviving terrifying encounters are all parts of the game, where you are triggering live action sequences in key moments, which gives it a very interesting look. FMV games have made somewhat of a comeback, but I always feel like they are more interactive movies where you just select choices, so to add an old school Alone in the Dark or Faith the Unholy Trinity kind of gameplay does make sense. It is also being published by New Blood Interactive, who have a tremendous track record, so I expect this to be no different. Speaking of super gross horror games, perhaps the front runner right now is Ill, a first-person action survival horror shooter where you delve into a dark fort overtaken by a mysterious evil force. The atmosphere is grim, with unpredictable monsters and horrific aberrations that stand between you and survival in this forsaken place. Combat encounters against visceral, realistic horrors look intense, with a dismemberment system that lets you tear apart grotesque creatures in shocking fashion, making every fight feel brutal and dangerous. I mean, Honestly, it's kind of obscene how gross this game is with the shots of the fingers at the start of the trailer, and spoiler alert, gross baby monsters as well, but I suppose it is exactly that kind of shock and awe that they are going for. There's also realistic physics, so every object can influence combat and puzzle solving in surprising ways, and enemies also behave unpredictably and react to their surroundings on impulse, making their movement and attacks feel disturbingly lifelike as you explore deeper into the fort's shadowed halls. So if you prefer a little bit more agency in your horror game, in being able to blast away at enemies while not being too overpowered, this should be the game for you. There's not been much news with regards to Nightmare Operator, but as of November 2025, the developer is still posting and sharing, so it is still in active development, being an action horror third-person shooter where you play as Misha, a public safety operator tasked with hunting legendary yokai in the haunted ruins of Tokyo in the year 2036. A time where humanity has declined and society struggles to survive. Combat combines tense, classic survival horror shooting with mechanics inspired by fighting games, letting you switch modular weapon parts on the fly to build combos and deal elemental effects like freeze, stun, or bleed to foes. The clutch system with command inputs for rapid weapon module swaps is the most interesting part, so mastering these inputs and timing becomes key as you attempt to use the right upgrades to deal with different enemies. Between missions, you may visit the local izakaya and can interact with other characters, also allowing you to dig into the archives to learn more about the broken world around you, all with a sick looking retro 3D aesthetic, and is high up on my personal watch list. Developer David Well has an amazing developer story, hitting it out of the park with the first tree, and is working on something very special in We Harvest Shadows, a first-person narrative farming horror game where you take control of Garrett, a transplant from the city who exiles himself to an abandoned farm and tries to make a new life here while strange things stir when night falls. Each new day brings a fresh to-do list where you fix up your house, care for livestock, and improve your farmstead while exploring the hundreds of acres that stretch around your land, focusing on building up the farm while managing hunger, thirst, and your inventory. At night, in the lonely quiet, something unseen makes itself felt, and as darkness deepens, you may begin to wonder if Garrett is truly alone or if something stalks him from the shadows, blending slow burn horror atmosphere and psychological tension rather than cheap jump scares. The game draws inspiration from psychological horror and personal story-driven first-person games, think Firewatch or something, with the story unfolding through voiceovers and journal entries that gradually reveal more about Garrett's past. In some ways, like Fractured Blossoms, this is also a cozy farming game, less anime of course, but it's in that vein and has a similar kind of appeal. I was so excited to learn of the existence of Darkwood 2, the follow-up to an excellent top-down survival horror game that once again drops you into eerie, scarred lands, this time around a dying sea where a strange corruption spreads. It is set a few years after the events of the first game, but is completely standalone, telling a new story with different characters. You are exploring and scavenging for resources, using those to craft weapons and tools, then face dangers both in the day and at night, but need to seek shelter in the latter case since that is when horrors that stalk the darkness become especially active. The environment includes deserted villages, rusted ships stuck in the sand, derelict oil rigs, collapsing factories and power stations, creating an industrial decay kind of setting which is neat, with there critically being no markers or flashing arrows to guide you depending on your own sense of direction and curiosity. New and terrifying creatures are in this game, with your main goal being to seek out the heart of the forest, or the titular Darkwood, and while it is technically from a different developer than the original, this is being published by Hooded Horse, who, like New Blood Interactive, have quite the reputation, so I expect the quality of this to be very high. Pony Island 2 Panda Circus is a surreal adventure game from the master of the meta horror game that takes you on a phantasmagorical voyage through time, myth, divinity, and video games as you struggle to escape from powerful deities of the underworld with both your soul and sanity intact. You play as a young nomad who was destined for greatness until an untimely end condemned you to a place called the Earth Prison, where strange gods reign and delight in challenging you with bizarre games and trials you must overcome. I don't think this game is about ponies, but rather has psychological and mythic themes, and escape depends on your ability to defeat and outwit these divine captors using your wits. There appears to be a variety of arcade-style minigames, which provides variety, spanning different genres, and might flip expectations, being surreal and very weird, but honestly, given that it's Daniel Mullins, whatever he's up to, I'm down for it. Another cozy horror title is Truck Fool, where the developers themselves have described this as dredge but trucks, so you get the idea. It's a single-player driving game where you pilot a trusty pickup truck through scenic countryside valleys to deliver much-needed goods to local townsfolk, while slowly unraveling a small-town mystery with an old mysterious forest at the heart of it all. Navigate winding rural roads, dusty lowlands, and quiet small towns while packing your truck bed with all kinds of cargo, from fragile fish to heirlooms, having to drive with care since there is physics and loads can fall off and break. Completing errands for the villagers earns their trust and often rewards you with parts to upgrade your truck's speed, weight, capacity, and performance so that you can take on tougher delivery jobs. As you explore, you might be tempted to take a shortcut through the ancient forest, which is where things get weird as legends and myths whisper of something watching from the shadows. So again, the contrast of a cozy horror game definitely intrigues me, so I cannot wait for this. Remember what I said about games that technically belong to other genres but have a strong horror vibe? Well, Neverway is a great example of that, being a farming life sim crossed with an action-adventure RPG, but where you become the mortal herald of a dead god. Our heroine, Fiona, quits her dead-end job and restarts life on a remote farm, then things start to get weird as strange threats leak into her reality. You are doing familiar Stardew Valley-style activities like farming, fishing, crafting, cooking, and decorating your homestead, which is combined with fast-paced top-down combat resembling a Zelda game that emphasizes action and your choice of weapons as you take on monstrous creatures attacking your farm and delve into dungeons to go on the offense. This is also on top of forming bonds with more than 10 unique characters, including romance and dating, unlocking powerful buffs and combat abilities as you choose whether to be honest or deceptive in those relationships. Time moves forwards in 3 blocks per day, morning, afternoon, and evening, and you decide when to advance time 1 block at a time, letting you mix quiet life sim tasks with moments of action and peril as the nightmare reality creeps closer. The pixel art comes from the artists behind Celeste, and the soundtrack is by Disaster Peace, both being big names in the indie game scene, giving the game a haunting visual style and audio identity that mixes both cozy and eerie tones. Needless to say, I absolutely love the look of this game and it's going to be a huge release. My most anticipated title is Hostin, a psychological survival horror action-adventure game that drops you into an isolated Polish town in the late 1990s where a fall calamity has begun to consume everything it touches, and strange, ungodly forces twist both people and the location into nightmares. You follow the trail of your friend Bartek to a small settlement, only to find the streets strewn with a filthy slime where the buildings, wildlife, and people alike seem to be rotting from the inside. You explore this festering town, scavenge for scarce supplies and weapons, and fight twisted monstrosities that lurk in dark corners, where the game's most unique aspect is how it uses the camera. This has top-down, isometric, side-scroller, first-person, and third-person over-the-shoulder camera angles, each used in different scenarios from combat to exploration and even platforming and driving, looking wholly unique, with the news being that they signed with publisher Team 17 in December 2025, so fingers crossed we will get a release date soon. Watch this video for more upcoming indie games.